Okay, if you've been following the Naziah Harris case, then you may know that there was a video I posted on my page, the other day. Marc D, who hosts the 7 Mile Radio, he was contacted by Shannon Harris' twin sister's boyfriend. The boyfriend called Marc D and wanted Marc D to come and remove the twins, from his home because he said Naziah Harris' case was putting given too much attention on his home. Well, apparently after that fallout, the landlord ended up in jail. I am going to play the hearing from court. There are not a lot of details right now, but what I know is exactly what was said by the lawyer. So please pay close attention to what the lawyer is saying. Now, the landlord's face is not visible, given the fact that, she is not involved, and I also don't want to put her face out there. But please pay attention, and then tell me below in the comments. Let me know how you guys feel about this. Marc D went over there to confront the twins and remove them from the home because the boyfriend called him. And now we know that the landlord ends up in jail. This is kind of getting out of hand, but let me know your comments below and I'll go ahead and play the clip.
They didn't leave, they would shoot. And Your Honor, it wasn't just these two complaining witnesses, there were workers there as well, who were doing the eviction, Your Honor. And then we have that when police arrived there, they see Miss Johnson in the street and she does have a firearm on her. So Your Honor, we have concerns for the safety of the public here. The one complaining witness said Miss Johnson was going on about a missing 13-year-old girl, and he had no idea what she was talking about. So it's unclear what exactly would have been would make this make sense. But Your Honor, there was a third-party witness who indicated that he saw this defendant pointing a gun at other individuals. He corroborated that she shot a round into the air. And so, Your Honor, given that we have some individuals who apparently were not trying to be hostile to Ms. Johnson, were not even there for anything having to do with her, they had firearms pointed at them and threatened to be shot. So given that there's this danger to strangers, we think there's a danger to the public. Given that one of those complaining witnesses is the landlord for the nearby property, it is likely that he will be near there in the future as he continues to do things with the property. And so we think that this is an ongoing threat. We're asking for $50,000 cash as surety with tether house arrest.
Mr. Reagan? Judge, I'm glad Ms. Douglas said, it doesn't make sense. Let me make it make sense. Let me make all of this make sense. So no, I just want to know, I don't want you to make it make sense. I want your bond argument. I'm about to give you my bond argument. It's going to make sense. So, Judge, my client lives at a residence on Grand Street. She lives in a 2-family flat. Above her, she's a landlord. Above her is the aunt of Naziah Harris, who lives with her boyfriend. So the boyfriend wants to get Miss Harris's aunt out the house because he's been getting a lot of threats and different things happening because of the case, the publicity that's going on with the case. He calls a podcast over to do a podcast that day.
Now, keep in mind, we just heard from the two attorneys, right? One attorney is obviously arguing to keep the defendant in jail, and she's saying there's nothing that could make this make sense, that the defendant came out, that there's witnesses that will say that she was armed and that she discharged that weapon, right? And then the other attorney, which is her attorney, is saying, I'm going to make this make sense, because the attorney said that she came out with a weapon and that she was going on and on about this missing 13-year-old girl. And she said there's nothing that could make this make sense as to why this weapon went off, allegedly, right? And the attorney jumps in and he says, he's giving his bond argument for her. And he says, I'm going to make this make sense for you. And he said, she is a landlord. She lives below, and that the tenant is Naziah Harris' aunt. And Naziah Harris' aunt and her boyfriend lives above her, and that they called a podcast host over to come and have the boyfriend, well, obviously they called Marc over, right? And they're referring to him as the podcast host, to come and have the podcast host remove Naziah Harris' aunt from the home. Now we're going to hear the rest of this, right? What are your thoughts on this so far?
With her boyfriend. So the boyfriend wants to get Miss Harris's aunt out the house because he's been getting a lot of threats and different things happening because of the case, the publicity that's going on with the case. He calls a podcast over to do a podcast that day. So this is Wednesday. So my client's also been getting a lot of threats based on the fact she hasn't put this aunt out the house and all this other stuff. So fast forward to Wednesday, she takes her daughter to school. She comes back home. There's 6 different cars sitting all around up the alley in front of her house with different men. I'm assuming it's the whole armor squad removed. Whatever that is, Judge. I have to know what the whole armor squad removed. I guess people feel like they can just remove people if they think the squad. Regardless, Judge. So what happened, my client's a licensed CPR holder, has a gun on her hip. Never once takes the gun off her hip. Never once. She starts to ask the people that are sitting in front of her house. There's several cars. What are you guys out here doing? They start to get aggressive. She calls the police. My client does. They come out, right? Never find any shell casing anywhere on the ground because she never removed the gun off her hip. In fact, they took the gun off her holsters. That's how they removed it. It was on her hip. Still had one round in the table. She never shot the gun. These guys had to get their story together. They all came up with the same story, saying, oh, she pointed a gun at us. Just so they could get her locked up. She's been getting threats, Judge. Things have been happening based on these other cases going on. She has a license to carry guns. She's never shot it one time. I'm asking for a personal bond, for her. I don't think she's a threat. I think this is all made up. I sat here and listened for an hour, and it all made sense. It all made sense, Judge. And I'm just asking you to take my bond argument into consideration when setting bond.
And Your Honor, if her first was the only house on the street, it could make sense. But when you have a residential block, people might be there for other houses, and that's what they indicated. So, Your Honor, there's a third-party witness who says this also happened. It's not just these complaining witnesses.
All of you don't say that. Don't say that. Hold on. One moment. Okay, one moment.